from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on AgDay, USDA rolling out a new report. We have reaction and analysis, plus how to make money in 2018, and agribusiness managing the soybean market.
The demand's a little bit lagging for beans, unfortunately.
Right.
Export sales are running about 13% behind last year's pace.
Ken Ferry discusses field fertility on Farm Journal College TV and the benefits of bringing the outdoors in.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths with Midwest fields under a blanket of snow and cold. Grain traders turning their attention to South America as USDA boosts its forecast for the Brazilian soybean crop. The Ag Department increasing the production estimate by 2 million metric tons, settling at 112 million metric tons.
Brazilian crops actually look to be doing quite well. They've had fair temperatures, good adequate weather down there in Brazil. On the other side of the continent, Argentina, we're seeing a little bit of a drier, warmer spell and putting some stress on those crops.
That bigger bean crop in Brazil may be one reason USDA lowered its demand estimate for U.S. soybean exports. Fewer shipments of beans pushed the soybean ending stocks higher to 530 million bushels in the U.S. Meanwhile, the Ag Department boosting domestic corn exports, lowering U.S. corn ending stocks to 2.3 billion bushels. And U.S. wheat stocks come in at just over 1 billion bushels, with USDA boosting the supply by 20 million bushels. The Ag Department also says Argentina's corn crop is smaller than expected due to dry weather last month. Our reporting partners at Pro Farmer have sifted through the reports. Editor Brian Grady shares his perspective.
It was an export show. USDA increased its corn exports, but it lowered export projections for both soybeans and wheat. And, you know, that really kind of gave the tone of the reports negative in a sense up front, in that corn carryover was lowered because of the increased export number, while wheat and soybean carryovers were increased because of the lower export numbers there. But when we look at the price action, the soybean market absorbed this really, really well.
After threatening to launch a probe into U.S. sorghum shipments, China now says it may need more U.S. corn. Sorghum is often used as a substitute for corn in animal feed in China. China's Ag Ministry raising its forecast for corn imports to 1.5 million tons, up by 300,000 tons from the previous month's forecast. China says the U.S. is dumping sorghum in its country at unfairly low prices, something U.S. sorghum flatly denies. USDA saying this week its net farm income forecast for 2018 could be the industry's worst in more than a decade, which leaves many wondering how to make money in 2018. Betsy Gibbon joins us now with more.
Clinton row crop farmers receiving the confirmation they did not want in USDA's latest crop production report. Wild weather in the Corn Belt is still creating a very large crop, now with bushels left in the bin.
I should have done this last summer. I should have done this last fall.
That phrase may sum up 2017 for some row crop farmers. It's why Basting suggests the best way to protect yourself is to look at costs and put a floor underneath bushels in the bin.
The put option, for example, the market goes higher, I can be a participant, but I don't want to see this market get away from people like it has.
U.S. farmers producing a record average corn yield in 2017 and record amount of production for soybeans. Some analysts say it may take a while to get back to a profit.
I think it gets better for us in 2019, and I really believe that it gets better for us in 2020.
Flory says it starts with knowing your costs.
When you get an opportunity to lock in a positive return, you need to lock in a positive return on at least some of those corn and soybeans.
Some analysts say take advantage of weather opportunities, since they may be limited.
Worldwide production numbers are nowhere near slowing down, and every time you find a weather market somewhere, such as what we have in Argentina right now, it's just presenting an opportunity, that's it.
The situation is different for the livestock industry, especially when it comes to beef.
You know, we're seeing nice margins in the feeder market right now. So, I mean, that's where I'd say you're seeing the most profitability at the moment. Cow-calf guys had a good run here coming into the end of the year, and as well as some decent profitability there as well.
In some cases, profits are close to the highs in late 2014 to early 2015 for the industry.
I think it's comparable. I think every operation is different, but there's some instances where it's the same or even a little bit better.
CattleFax saying in its annual outlook, 2017 was the second most profitable year across the beef industry. However, USDA's cattle inventory report shows a growing cattle herd, even if it's at a slower rate.
That's a challenge, as you think, if we are going to talk prices down a little bit, which we are because of the big supplies. It does look like the margin operators, whether that's the feedlot operators or the stocker operators, initially is probably where you see a little bit of the margin squeezed.
Reporting for AgDay, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Drought expands and snow continues to fall in the Midwest. Mike Hoffman joins us with an update.
Good morning, Clinton. The latest drought monitor shows nearly 40% on the continental U.S. is now classified as being in some sort of drought. That's up almost 10 points in just a week's time. It is now the largest drought footprint in nearly 4 years. Nearly a third of the Missouri River Basin is now in some level of drought.
It'll be a concern pretty fast in the next 3, 4, 5 months if we don't get something moving, because guys will be forced to make a move if we don't get any moisture down there.
Meanwhile, it's snow across the northern parts of the country. Casey Schumacher says the snow in northwestern Nebraska sure makes for a pretty picture. He says first-time heifers are 30 days away from calving. The herd is doing well in the cold. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see we're going to have some winds from the Rockies into the Central Plains. Not a whole lot as you move eastward. As you can see later today, then the majority going to be southern Canada and also the Central Rockies. But as we head through the day tomorrow, we're going to see those winds really pick up over the southwest, Nevada, back into California. That'll be the windiest part of the country by later tomorrow. We'll have more on your forecast coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
We'll talk about soybeans and the issues helping move markets. That's next at the Agribusiness Desk. And later, getting outside in nature can benefit your health, which is why one company is trying to bring the outdoors in. In agribusiness, it was a mixed day in markets. Let's get details now from the floor of the CME.
I want to specifically start with that March corn contract bumping right up against technical resistance, which we have outlined in our Grain Express that we send out in the mornings, 366.5 to 369. This is some key Fibonacci retracement levels as well as some moving averages. Now on the bottom side, 357 to 358.5 needs to hold. The bulls are in control so long as they can maintain that on a closing basis. Now as far as the soybeans are concerned, I think it's very difficult to say who's in control. It's probably more neutral than anything. Waiting for new news, largely probably from South America, weather, to give us either a breakout or a breakdown. Live cattle trading in a nice little range here, giving the bulls and the bears both opportunity to trade. As far as feeder cattle are concerned, same type of deal. Higher highs and higher lows are constructive, so looking for a pullback to 146.5 as a buying opportunity. So that's what we're looking at to round up the week. That's what you should be looking at too. It's been Oliver Slope with Blue Line Futures from the floor of the CME.
Jim McCormick with Allendale, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Jim, you know, last year in 2017, soybeans were kind of the darling of the market. I felt like the prices were pretty decent. Acreage number was up, yields were good. Is that going to be the same story for 2018?
Right now, we're a little bit pessimistic beans in 2018. Right now, demand's really, the demand's a little bit lagging for beans, unfortunately.
Right.
Export sales are running about 13% behind last year's pace. If we keep this pace up, we're going to miss the export target by about 300 million bushels, which is just way too many. So that's a problem. On top of it, the balance sheet situation the farmer finds them in the Midwest. Talking to a lot of banks and lenders, the balance sheets are tight. It's pushing guys to beans. We're hearing more and more guys planting beans, so we're probably going to see an increase in bean acres when we really don't need it due to the weak demand. And then on top of it, just overall what's going on in South America. There's a lot of story right now about Argentina. And that's a true problem. They're probably going to lose 5-6 million metric tons of the crop. Unfortunately, Brazil's crop, they're talking increasing 4 to 5 million metric tons potentially. So it's a wash. And when you got a world balance sheet at 98 million metric tons, the fact of the matter is if we lose 2 or 3 million metric tons, considering we're at 75 just 2 years ago, it shows you we've got an overabundant supply unless somebody has a major hiccup.
So are you buying into that 91.5 million acres of soybeans here in the U.S.? Do you think that's on target, too low, too high? What do you think?
Right now I'm buying into that 91. I think it could go a little bit higher depending on what happens. If the bean market, we're around $10 new crop beans. If we get another 10, 20, 10, 30 for some reason, I think you just buy more bean acres. Now if corn can catch a bid, the corn export sales have picked up recently. And corn can catch a bid, it's at $3.90. If it gets up to $4.25 in the Midwest, Illinois and Indiana, I think you got some guys who might be forced to go to beans. They'll make a run to corn because the American farmer likes to plant corn if he can.
Yeah, we're good at it. We like it.
We like it. We like to plant that corn. The fact is we can't economically justify it right now. So without that big push up in corn, I do think the bean acres are going to increase, unfortunately. So producers need to take a bearish mentality. We're recommending get it hedged, but maybe then use an option to maintain some ownership because the weather will be the wild card. It always is. But without a major weather problem, fundamentally, we have just too many beans, it looks like.
All right, Jim, appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a couple minutes.
To talk to Jim McCormick one-on-one, contact Allendale Incorporated at 815-578-6166 or email Jim at jmccormick@allendale-inc.com. Ag Day, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential. One dream, 2 prizes, 3 fields. Show us your farm and you could win a $10,000 donation for your community, plus a dream sports trip for you. To enter, visit powertodomore.com. Sponsored by Resicor Herbicide.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here. Mike, we talked about the drought and dryness in the middle of the country in northern plains, but one of the biggest storms of the year as far as winter storms coming through the Great Lakes region.
Right, and it's not a powerful area of low pressure. It's just going to snow for a long period of time in kind of the I-80 strip across the country from the plains into the northeast. And that's because of multiple areas of low pressure and pieces of energy just kind of riding along this frontal system as it moves off to the east and slowly southward in the plain states, and behind it on the north side of it is where all the snow is going to be. We also have an area of low pressure that's going to be developing across Texas, and that will be kind of interacting with this whole system as we head into the weekend. There's late in the day tomorrow as we start the weekend, snow across the southern and eastern portions of the Great Lakes, back into Nebraska. Upslope snow by the time you get into the western plains, into the eastern portions of the Rockies with that easterly wind coming in. You can see that area of low pressure developing over northeast Texas as we head into the day tomorrow, with rain breaking out across the Tennessee Valley over into the Carolinas. And then we head through the day Saturday. You're still going to talk some more snow developing on the north side of this thing, from northern Kansas, northern Missouri, all the way into north central Indiana as this system develops, and that will start to move along the front as well. So kind of an interesting, complicated storm system. Check out your local forecast for some of those snow amounts. But here's what our computer model is showing as far as moisture is concerned. Past 36 hours, mostly in that strip from South Dakota into the southern Great Lakes, and that's really where we add a lot more of it over the next 36 hours. But then we also add a fair amount of moisture into the Tennessee Valley, northern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia in the form of rain. It's all in the form of snow north of the front, and you can see we will just continue to add a little bit more and kind of a little bit farther south as time goes on into the plain states over the next 36 hours. Also a fair amount of snow falling in the eastern and northern portions of the Rockies. Temperatures this afternoon, very cold north of the front, pretty mild south of the front, some 70s showing up in parts of Texas, much of Florida, and you can see low temperatures tonight way below zero in the far northern plains, still 50s and 60s in the southeast. Highs tomorrow afternoon, then you're talking single digits from Omaha northward. But you get south of that front and you're looking at 50s, 60s, and even 70s by the time you get to the Gulf Coast. Here's the jet stream, and like it's been showing the past few days, it is expected to get a cutoff low into the southwest. That kind of splits everything for a while, and what this does is when you have a split flow, it stays cold in this northern tier of area, but it can get pretty warm Tennessee Valley southward in that type of a situation. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, Twin Falls, Idaho, breezy with a mix of sun and clouds, high temperature around 50. Rockford, Illinois, periods of snow ending late this afternoon, high 24. And Savannah, Georgia, cloudy with some afternoon rain showers, high around 67.
We'll talk field fertility on Farm Journal College TV up next, and later we're off to Seattle, where this mega corporation is trying to capture the benefits of nature for its office dwellers.
AgDay, brought to you by Alivo Seed Treatment from Bayer. Protect your soybeans from SDS and nematodes this season. The Farm Journal College Report is brought to you by Instinct and N-Serve nitrogen stabilizers. They don't just stabilize nitrogen, they maximize it, so crops deliver the max in return. Learn more at maxinmaxout.com.
We continue our conversation on fertility with Ken Ferry in today's Farm Journal College TV. Ken, you guys have been working on trying to figure out the most efficient way to use nitrogen in our nutrients. And this is kind of a starter plot that you have. Talk about what we see here.
Right, we're looking at, in this particular plot, we're looking at different starters, different additives to the starter, but we're also looking at placement of the starter itself. And what we're trying to look for is the most efficient way to apply a nutrient to get the biggest bang for the buck you can get. And when you talk about fertilizer and placement and timing, where you put it has to be in tune with the plant itself as far as will it be there when it needs it.
Right.
And so the small amounts of fertilizer that we're applying here on the large picture, when we talk about per acre, don't amount to much, but because of the positioning of them, they play some specific roles during certain parts of the plant's life.
Okay.
A good example here, this plant is from that row and this was from this row, and there's two different treatments in here. In this case, we have a low rate of starter in furrow on one of them and no starter in the other one. And above ground, you can tell it in the sunlight and everything else. Doesn't make that much difference visually right now, but when we dig these plants, you can see I have just became a V1 plant. The plumule leaf is out and got a collar on it. This is also a V1 plant, but it's going to be a V2 plant tomorrow. So there's about a collar difference between these plants in the growth. And we can see the big difference is in the seed root itself. So in this case, where I put some fertilizer in the furrow, I have a very aggressive seed root coming off of there compared to where I don't have it. So it's this stimulation that we picked up from the fertilizer being there right in the furrow that's causing this plant to be bigger.
When we come back, seeing green at work isn't just for farmers anymore.
AgDay, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market. In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Yes, it's still winter, but in South Texas, planting has already started, and it won't be long before we're all walking and working in fields of grain. It's that same environment the Amazon company is aiming for at its newest office space in Seattle. The Spheres feel like a rainforest conservatory built of glass and white steel. Lighting mimics the equator. The interior is maintained at 72 degrees with 60% humidity. It's home to more than 40,000 plants from 50 countries on 5 continents.
It's comfortable for people first, then we have these plants. And the idea is that we connect them with nature, we get them away from their normal desk environment. So there's no, you don't see any desks or cubicles around. And you kind of convene with nature.
And studies have shown there are great mental and physical benefits to spending time in nature, which farmers and ranchers do plenty of. Research has shown improved short-term memory, more mental energy and better concentration, sharper creative problem solving. One study showed a 50% improvement, better vision, less stress, lower inflammation, and a stronger immune system, on top of a reduced risk of early death. Obviously, these studies don't take into account the current state of the ag economy or the challenges of managing an ecosystem not encased in glass like insects, wind, or flooding. Now, some days aren't exactly mentally freeing, but some days are. My time on a farm or with my folks on the ranch typically flood back as positive memories, moments worth keeping. Even on the hard days, I wouldn't trade fields of dreams for a concrete jungle. That's all the time we have today. We're glad you tuned in, spent part of your day with us. For Mike Hoffman and all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.